Ligandrol, LGD 4033, oral versus Magnalone, the intramuscular inject of LGD 4033. This is a current update on our unfinished research where we've experimented with all different dosages of oral LGD and also different dosages of intramuscularly. First of all, Trevor, what is Ligandrol, either oral or injectable?
It's a selective, we already know, it's a SARM, selective androgen receptor modulator. And what this means is it's supposed to work on just the androgenic receptors found on the skeletal tissue and not supposed to give you side effects such as steroids. However, taking it orally, going through a liver, does start to crash lipids, and it does affect SHBG, in turn crashes testosterone.
This is something we've been experimenting with for the last 3.5 years in the underground. We update you with our experimentation after we get enough results that we're pretty sure that we've isolated what's true versus placebo. And we have no motivation one way or another. This is just reporting our findings. We've experimented with different dosages. In oral, we've experimented with dosages of up to 120 milligrams on the extreme high side with one individual, and dosages up to 50 milligrams on most professional or amateur level bodybuilders, down to recreational weightlifters.
I have done 100.
And Trevor's going to tell us what's the highest dosage you've taken orally, and then we're going to go to intramuscular dosage.
Yeah, I've done 100 milligram orally. Same with the S23 and Rad 140. And there is a difference. The only one, again, is Osterine. But there was a difference in LGD at 100, but also more side effects. So same like anything else.
And I've done dosages up to 50 milligrams from what I can remember. Sorry, we don't have all our notes in front of you because this is the accumulation of about 3.5 years of research that we're trying to summarize for you. And the research is incomplete, which at the end we're going to ask you guys if you have anything to add to it. Intramuscular injections, what dosages are we going to be talking about? I've personally injected up to 50 milligrams of intramuscular Magnalone. How much have you injected?
I have done 100. I've done it a couple times, and I will say there was an improvement. The significance between, let's say, 25 and 50 is more so than the 50 to 100, but the 50 to 75 is also another noticeable increase. Just that 100 doesn't seem to give too much, too much benefit over your side effects.
So overall, I haven't experienced any serious side effects at any of these dosages, oral or intramuscular. Intramuscular, my highest dosage being 50 milligrams. Oral, my highest dosage being 50 milligrams. The worst side effects I've experienced, and these are all short cycles that I've been doing, so we don't know what happens if I or someone else was staying on this compound for a very long period of time. But for me, the worst thing I experienced was glycogen depletion, which is that if I don't eat enough, I actually feel flat. I feel weak. It's almost as if my muscles are burning through. My metabolism is increased too much with a high dosage, which means that sometimes even lowering the dosage could be more effective. Because if we take too much of these compounds, and especially when we go into the bioavailability difference between oral and injectable, if we take too much of this compound, it could actually make it harder to gain muscle because you can't eat enough food to keep up with the increase in the metabolism.
So that's just to clarify that too, that's the same if you have a fast metabolism and you're taking a lot of anabolics. I'll bring up Boston Lloyd, for example, only because he runs a lot of gear, and notice that he talks about not doing cardio or not needing to do cardio. Part of this reason is the caloric demand requirements because of this, and you're talking about 50 milligrams of a substance doing the same thing. So that's also added when we talk about potency or its effects.
Now, when one test subject took 120 milligrams of oral LGD, it was the most powerful anabolic stack he'd ever taken, and he has taken high dosage of gear as well. So we know that LGD is already very effective in the oral form at extremely high dosages and with minimal apparent side effects, like side effects that he could actually see or feel.
Mm-hmm. And there's a few documented online too with a natty who did the injectable LGD, no cholesterol change, no testosterone change. So that's another benefit.
And all of this is going to be dosage dependent, right? Though, but if we're using a lower dosage of intramuscular Magnalone than the oral dosage, then is that why we're expecting less side effects? Is just because we can use a lower dosage for a higher effect, or is there other reasons why the there's less side effects of the Magnalone from your experience?
You get a double effect, right? Because the main reason for these side effects is the pass in the liver. Whether it's 100% bioavailable or not, the fact that it goes through your liver and gets broken down in those metabolites before anything else, and the fact that the extensive breakdown of hormones in the liver is another primary example for why SHBG crashes. So you have two reasons, liver, and then the other being the lower dose, you get less side effect no matter what it is. However, even though the Cmax does this, you're still getting less. You're getting direct access to an androgen receptor before it even touches the liver.
But one of the reasons why we're doing this video right now is we got lab results back from one of our test subjects who ran 25 milligrams of injectable Magnalone per week for 1 week. 25 milligrams per day for 1 week. And we noticed no elevation in liver enzymes. In fact, liver enzymes decreased. We're still within the normal range of what someone who's weightlifting would have as their liver enzymes. So the Magnalone had zero effect on the liver enzymes, which is usually how we determine whether there was liver toxicity. So we know that both the LGD 4033 oral and the Magnalone inject have minimal impact or no impact on the liver. Then why are you saying the fact that the oral passes through the liver creates more side effects than the Magnalone?
Because it goes to your liver.
But it's not damaging the liver at all. So what is it? What's happening that it's going through the liver that if it's taken orally that could cause more side effects?
So your liver is basically what filters the content to go into your blood, right? So nothing toxic gets directly into your blood. Well, you're giving this directly through a liver pass, which, let's throw out bioavailability, it's already being broken down into its metabolites by your liver. When you have, especially sex hormones, you take steroids, for example, look at even non-methylated and methylated steroids, and then take the injectable version, it's identical, same thing. So bring up Winstrol, Primo, any one of these. When you take it orally, that extensive breakdown of sex hormones or even hormones in general, even though they're synthetic, if you look at the chemical structure, it's being treated the same way. We're not getting that anymore.
But oral Winstrol is methylated. Oral Winstrol is liver toxic. So
Primabone isn't.
Is it the liver toxicity that's creating the metabolite side effects?
No,
it's just the fact that it's going through the liver, whether it's liver toxic or not.
So, and then another one, for example, is take THC. THC happens to be one of the few that one of those metabolites, the 11-hydroxy metabolite, is 100 times more potent than the actual THC, but you get micrograms of it.
And where's that metabolite created in the liver?
It's being broken down by the liver into that metabolite, yes.
Are you also saying that then the Magnalone or the Ligandrol, as it goes through the liver, is being broken down into other compounds that are having other effects on the body?
They're most of those, including same with steroids, are all inactive metabolites.
Oh, inactive meaning they're not going to have an impact on the body.
No, just a waste.
Okay, but you're predicting that the oral Ligandrol is going to have more of a negative impact on SHBG and our natural hormone balance.
It always will.
Injectable because it's going through the liver.
It always will.
Even though it's not liver toxic.
Yeah, it always will.
All right, got it.
Toxicity means nothing. We're going to throw that out.
That's going to be more of the future, some of the future experiments that we do. We've done some experiments to prove or disprove that theory, but we're not finished, and so we'll update you with those experiments as they come in.
And then remember too, cholesterol. Your cholesterol has a direct effect from the medication going through the liver. When you say HDL, LDL, it's not cholesterol per se. It's the lipoproteins or carriers in response. That's what's going through the liver and transporting.
All right, so if someone wants to send their lab work in, which I encourage, if anybody has lab work on the Magnalone, and especially if someone has lab work to compare the Magnalone to the oral to add to our research database, I guess you'd say, of current lab work we have of test subjects, then how do they send that to you, Trevor?
Well, first of all, make sure it's certain. If anybody is actually compounding it, you get a HPLC tested first, because there could be other things in there. the way it's cooked and the materials that are being used in the environment is going to change all of your results. You could take something that directly destroys your kidney, which most of the UGL stuff does, because these recipes they're using are the same ones they're doing online.
Yes, well, that's one of the reasons I started experimenting on myself, and my friends started experimenting on themselves as well, is because I did not trust the information that was on the internet, because I don't know whether the HPLC tested the ingredients that they were using, and I don't know if they accounted for all the different variables, so that when we're doing these experiments, we're accounting for the different variables, and we HPLC test the substances that we're using, which is extremely rare. That's why I just don't read forums, or if I do, I just take it with a grain of salt, and I sort of compare. I need to see like 10 results that have something in common from the internet before it's relevant, so I can compare it to my actual legitimate research.
I can give you just quick examples on that. If you took a dirty product, something with a lot of bacteria, you're going to see your entire immune profile change. That will skew your results there. You're going to see if they're using very high solvent ratios, bad chemicals to do this. You're going to see, you could see liver, you could see kidney values, your BUN, creatinine. There is so, even in localized injections, you get protein breakdown. There's so much that goes into it. So
when we're saying the research that we're doing, we are doing research on HPLC tested oral Ligandrol and HPLC tested Magnalone, produced in a very high quality environment with no toxins and no toxic chemicals used in the manufacturing process that could skew the results of the actual active compound in the body. All right, so the positive effects, just some difference between the Ligandrol oral and the Magnalone, because we know that they both build muscle. That's why most people use them. Potentially increase bone density, decrease recovery time, increase strength and performance, all the things that people use a performance-enhancing drug for. Obviously, Ligandrol does that very effectively, and we'll compare it to some gear in a minute. But there's some positive effects that you keep mentioning that the intramuscular application has that the oral version does not, and that is local growth. Why do you think that it has local growth in the site it's actually administered?
Okay. So this so far is hypothesis or theory. I bring this up because there is a compounding pharmacy license in Australia making it's called S22 Forte, which is Austrian. They give these in 500 microgram injections always bilaterally. It has to be given bilaterally. And the reasoning is because they believe, or they have
Bilateral
seen.
Bilateral means you inject half of it in each side.
Yeah, so 1 milligram would be their dose, right? 500 in each microgram. So remember that when you think about Austrian, that's the compounding pharmacy. Now, whether that is in vivo or in vitro or a petri dish, that's another topic. But also, if that would hold true, then if you were to do subcutaneous injections and at 500 micrograms, you could literally give like 5 units on an insulin syringe to do that. You could get localized fat loss, right? Because there's androgen receptors found in the fat. You would actually get a lipolytic effect that SARMs never had before directly, and it'll do that before it goes systemic.
Okay, 2 things. I believe that your hypothesis is probably correct, that there's local site growth, because when we inject things like testosterone suspension or trenbolone suspension or other things that have no ester attached, which is that most steroids have esters attached to them, so they don't actually have any effect on the local muscle tissue. They're actually broken down, the esters cleaved off to render the active hormone, which circulates the body fully and systemically, so it creates systemic growth, versus injecting something that has no ester, that has immediate impact and effect, and ready to attach the androgen receptor. Is that accurate? No?
No, you have a prodrug versus an active, right?
So the prodrug is the esterified.
Is a hormone.
Right? Yeah.
So when we talk about, I say growth hormone is a precursor, or it's a prodrug, correct? Testosterone, same. We're not getting, just testosterone is not the reason why you're growing. You're getting the IGF response, glycogen. It's creating a cascade effect of hormones, right? Well, these aren't prodrugs. These SARMs, the way SARMs work on the androgen, they work on the nuclear receptor. Completely different. So as soon as you inject it, it's not, you can't even relate it to it.
But okay, trenbolone suspension, just pure tren, no ester, injected into the muscle. Isn't it going to have more of a muscle growth impact right there because it's such a high concentration hitting exactly the receptors?
So you're gonna, if most people, yeah, almost everyone, when you give an injection, say trenbolone, right? 100 milligram trenbolone, it'll cover all those androgen receptors.
In your whole body.
With testosterone, everything in you. So when you inject it locally, nothing's really going to happen.
And you're saying that SARMs actually do have, or Magnalone, we'll analyze the rest later, you're saying SARMs do have a local growth.
Because, again, nuclear receptor and the way these function are completely outside.
But when you inject it into the muscle, isn't it circulating through the entire body very quickly? I mean, when I inject
it'll go
insulin,
systemic, yeah.
I inject insulin into the muscle. I mean, it's systemic in my body, like, very quickly.
Well, because it needs the zinc. When you give it subcutaneous, it needs the zinc molecule present. It's nothing to do with blood supply. Zinc is found everywhere. So when you inject the IM or IV, that's the reason why. It needs to cleave. It's the hex or a 10 chain, I believe it is. So it can't get to it in the fat. There's none in there. That's one of the reasons why. So it has to go to it, and that's why it takes so long.
So if you were me and you're preparing for this bodybuilding competition in a month like I am, would you inject the Magnalone in the fat or in the muscle?
Muscle, and I say that because it depends, right? So it depends on your dosing. If you were giving like a full cc, which would be 50 milligrams, which is very high, and there would be some, I wouldn't say water retention, but it wouldn't be something ideal for stepping on stage unless you wanted to fill out the day prior to it, plus the build-up effect. If you put that whole cc in your fat, there will be a lump there for a little. Everyone's different depending on your metabolism. Could be up to a week. I mean, you're talking about a full cc, right? So it all depends on what carrier is used and your metabolism. That's why I wouldn't do that.
Okay, I prefer less needle sticks. So the whole idea of shooting bilaterally, half and half, is not appealing to me.
You don't need to. You can do one day here.
One day here and one day the other side. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's my preference.
And there is a buildup on LGD, so it doesn't mean you have to take it every day. It can be taken every other day because over 2 days it's still going up.
Actually, I did write the administration frequency. So the oral LGD is a 24 to 36 hour half-life, so they say. The intramuscular, I assume, non-extended release Magnalone is still somewhere around 24 to 36 hour half-life would be pretty similar.
Yeah, but it would drop by probably 6 hours, 8 hours or so. It would definitely, you'll see a Cmax spike, a huge spike versus the oral, which tells you in a faster onset. So that tells you the absorption. As soon as you inject it, it starts being released very fast. However, when we say half-life is different than delivery, right? So we're changing a delivery method. We can also control the breakdown of the drug via delivery solutions. And that's what this is. So half-life, if it's 24 to 36 hours, it's still going to be the same because the active drug itself on the receptor is supposed to be bound for that time. Well, half that time.
So when I was reading the studies, they said that 3 milligrams oral LGD is actually very effective as an anabolic, which is an extremely low dosage. And we're talking about dosages way higher than that. By the way, none of this is medical legal advice or any type of advice at all. This is just our research and our communication as we're learning together. But if 3 milligrams oral is effective, it would seem to me that with a half-life of an average of 30 hours, I could actually inject Magnalone once a week, because if I was going to inject 25 milligrams, if you looked at how much was in my bloodstream a week later, because the half-life means how much it degrades by half in what period of time, I'm still going to have a significant amount in my body, or at least on the receptors, in bloodstream or on the receptors.
In which form?
Either, really.
XR
right?
or
not extended release, just regular Magnalone with a 30-hour half-life. I could actually do 25 milligrams once a week. I would still have more of a dosage in my system than the studies that were done at the end of the week, right?
Yes, but it would clear out your system, and then you'd have days without it on the receptor.
Yeah, I would never do that without an anabolic foundation, like without running TRT or
Oh yeah.
testosterone
Oh yeah,
as a
yeah.
foundation. But if I was running TRT as a foundation and I wanted to maintain some level up, some anabolic level, clinically anabolic level, 3 milligrams, it seems like I could just inject it once a week. I'm not recommending
if
that
you
for
wanted
myself.
but if you wanted the clinical dose, you would theoretically take 3 to 5 milligrams once a week to get the same as that 3 milligrams a day.
3 milligrams injectable.
3 to 5, yeah, versus the 3 milligrams they give every day.
Okay, got it.
If you're going to relate the two,
I mean, that doesn't
maybe
sound
10
very
milligrams max.
exciting to me. I know you guys are thinking that I'm a crazy person because I'm experimenting with dosages 40 times the clinical dosage. But that's what we do. That's how we find out what the upper limit of these things are, where the plateau is, what the side effects are. And for me, they say 3 milligrams is effective, but I've injected 50 milligrams and it's God mode.
Yeah, so you have to.
It's definitely 50 is noticeably more powerful than 25 milligrams injected.
Yes, 100%. And that's kind of, there's similar hormones when we talk about that too, where there is a significant difference as soon as you just 25, let's say, for example, Anadrol. You go from that 50 milligram to that 100 milligram mark, completely new drug now. Side effects, growth, everything. The way it works, completely different. You have to remember that 3 milligram dose though. Look, when you read the study, you have to look at the patients. So the patients were always older. They could be male, but female as well. So they take people with bone loss, muscle wasting. 3 milligrams is effective and that strong when they put on, I believe, 7 kilos or something like that in a 3-month study. So you have to remember they may have, if you read it, may have a disease, muscle wasting. They may be age related, have no testosterone.
Or they might not be bodybuilders who already are so far beyond their natural potential.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we're talking bodybuilder dosage experiment.
Just keep that in mind when you guys read studies because it'll throw these off.
All right, so the negative effects. We do know that LGD has a negative impact on cholesterol. Whether that matters for heart disease or not is still to be determined. Even doctors can't. They say that they can kind of predict heart disease based on LDL and HDL, but the truth is there's so many other factors in heart disease. My LDL is messed up. My HDL is messed up. And I'm not really worried about it, honestly. I'm still going to try to work on correcting it, but it's not a big concern. I know it sounds crazy. I'll do a future video on the current status of my heart and my cholesterol. But I would prefer to administer all of these compounds in a way that has less of a negative impact on my cholesterol. Even though it's not a big deal to me, I would still prefer that. So how do I, Trevor, go about using either one of these to minimize impact on my cholesterol?
Well, first, actually, before I answer that, every person who is cycling or taking steroids throughout their life, if you don't get cancer, you will die of a heart issue directly related to steroids. So cholesterol is a part of it. So just throw that, it is important. So worry about it, but it is important. So go back to the question.
I'm just going to add one more thing. What I'm most concerned about my heart is body size. And I know I'm already far beyond what's healthy for my body as far as my heart having to work so hard to pump through this body. So I'm more concerned about my body size than I am with my cholesterol. And since I'm willing to compromise my heart health in exchange for being as big as I am, then cholesterol is sort of a secondary issue to that. That's why. Priorities and keeping it relative, right? So how do I use these to minimize, which one do I use these to minimize impact on my cholesterol? And then I have a hypothesis for you after I hear what you have to say.
So definitely here, because we do know oral SARMs affect cholesterol, at least your HDL for sure. This, I can tell you, we still have to say it's still a hypothesis or theory, but it's the same with steroids. The oral versus the inject, again, because of that hepatic pass, is now completely different when it comes to your cholesterol cascade hormone effect, SHBG. So because of this liver pass, remember, cholesterol is different than HDL, LDL. Those are lipoproteins. Nothing nothing to do. They carry cholesterol. So if you don't eat enough cholesterol, you will have bad cholesterol. HDL will be down, LDL will be up, just from not having cholesterol. So have whole eggs, right? You need it to form your own opinion. So, but yes, that's going to be what you would want to take.
Okay. My hypothesis also would be that we would be able to take a much lower dosage for the same anabolic effect of this, which would then render less side effects overall.
So
I could instead of taking 25 milligrams of this, or I know that sounds ridiculously high, but let's say for me, instead of taking 25 milligrams of this, I could take 10 milligrams or 5 milligrams of this for the same positive effect, but therefore because the dosage is less and it's not passing through the liver, with less negative effect.
So let's just bring up, for example, Primabol and acetate, the tablets versus this. So this is a good example, aside from bioavailability. When you look at when people take oral Primobolan, you will have cholesterol issues, depending on your dose. If it's 5 milligrams, you won't. But the 50 to 100 milligrams, you see a cholesterol drop. And then when you take the injectable version at that same milligram, do the experiment yourself. It's already set in stone. It's been shown 1,000 times.
Okay. Effect on natural testosterone. Sex hormone binding globulin, free testosterone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. All the things that go into keeping our reproduction system healthy and our ability to produce natural testosterone. Do you think there's a different effect on that between the intramuscular and the oral version?
Yes. So the main problem you're going to have, you have a couple, right? So the active life of a drug or half-life, the longer it is, the more you will have the shutdown, right? So we do a testosterone suspension. You check your labs in a week, do your enanthate, check your labs in a few weeks after that, you're going to have a different curve, right? So the main result of any testosterone suppression or any hormonal effect that you're going to have from an injectable Magnalone or SARM is this. Your body's response to the increased level of androgens. However, again, in theory, that androgenic response is going to be different because they're not going to everywhere else in your body like a steroid is. Back to the nuclear receptors and how those work. So these are supposed to work skeletal tissue, not go to organs, not cause the organ growth, but also because of that, in the liver pass, testosterone won't be affected. Mainly, this is what's happening, is SHBG crashes when we take the oral. Again, direct result from taking, or your liver breaking this stuff down. When this happens, we go over back to DHT. The metabolite of the DHT is what's causing that. It's causing a suppression, DHEA. That's why women get viralization. So, I mean, we'll go over it later, but.
So AR, what was this? AR?
Your body's response to an androgenic overload.
Okay.
Like Phytodrol. The only side effects you get from Phytodrol are due to the AR response.
Okay, so there's the liver impact, but then also it seemed like in my research a long time ago that there was some sort of feedback system somewhere else other than the liver or the HPTA axis that could cause your body to produce less testosterone. Like just the fact that the muscles are stimulated, the androgen receptors are stimulated alone, and that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Okay. So
It's
anything anabolic could potentially lower
on the
testosterone.
androgenic scale.
Got
Yes.
it.